Good afternoon, students. Today we are going to discuss the descending tracts or the motor tracts. Okay. Till now we have discussed all of the ascending tracts. Okay. So today in this descending tracts, what are the division of the descending tracts? So the descending tracts, it is divided into pyramidal tracts, and the extra pyramidal tracts. Okay. These pyramidal tracts are also known as the cortical tracts, and this is known as the subcortical tracts. Okay. Look at the nomenclature here. Pyramidal tracts, it is known as the cortical tracts, and the extra pyramidal tracts are known as the subcortical tracts. So pyramidal tracts are those descending tracts which are originating, that means the neurons of those tracts, first order neuron, where it should be present? It should be present in the cerebral cortex. Okay. Here in the extra pyramidal tracts, the first order neuron, it will not be the cerebral cortex. The little bit lower, below the cortical regions, there are certain areas, collections of the grey matter. This topic we will discuss in the next class. That is the red nucleus, the reticular formation, the olivary nucleus, the vestibular nucleus. All these neurons are present where? Just below the cerebral cortex, and the axons which originates from them, they are included in different lists, that is the extra pyramidal tract. Those are also the descending tracts which assist this pyramidal tracts for the motor function. So this pyramidal tract, again, it is divided into two parts, that is the lateral corticospinal tract, and the anterior corticospinal tract. Isn't it? So why this tract is divided into two parts? Lateral corticospinal tract and the anterior corticospinal tract. Lateral corticospinal tract, it is mainly concerned, these tracts, they are concerned with the voluntary motor movement. That means the motor pathway, the descending tracts which are controlling the skeletal muscles, the functions of the skeletal muscles. So these tracts are concerned with the skeletal muscles, movement of the skeletal muscles, and that is divided into two parts, the lateral corticospinal tract and the anterior corticospinal tract. This lateral corticospinal tract, it will be related with the movement of the distal part of the limbs, distal limb movement. Okay. And this part anterior with the trunk or the axial movement. This corticospinal tract, this mainly lateral corticospinal tract, it is related with the precise and the very skilled movement, where in the anterior corticospinal tract you will get the very gross movement. Suppose you have flushed the trunk. In this movement, not a single muscle is involved, rather more than one muscle come together and works, that is the in the trunk and the axial movement. So this is the gross movement. It is under control of the anterior corticospinal tract, and here in the lateral corticospinal tract, it is mainly involved with the precise, the skilled voluntary movements of the limbs. Okay, so it is like that. Now, before going in detail of these individual tracts, just have a rough sketch of this descending pathway. Okay, from where the, just like the ascending tracts, all the first thing, that was the first part was the receptors. Here in this pathway, the first thing, the structure was the receptors. Okay, just like that, here in the motor pathway or the descending tract, the first structure where it is present, the first neuron where you have to find out, that will be known as the upper motor neuron. Okay, so the upper motor neuron are present in the cerebral cortex. Okay, the neurons which are present in the cortex, the axons will originate from there, comes downward, descend to the spinal cord. Okay, and it synapse here. It will synapse here with the cell body of the second order neuron. Okay, here in the spinal cord it will synapse or relay here in the cell body of the second order neuron. Then the axons which will originate from the second order neuron, they comes out through the spinal cord and they will supply the muscle like this. Which type of muscle? In this heading we are mainly concerned with the skeletal muscles. Okay, so these will control the movement of the skeletal muscle. That means this is the upper motor neuron. So the first fiber, the descending fibers which originates for the motor movement of any of the skeletal muscles, where it is present in the cerebral cortical area. From there the fiber descend, the axons comes down in bundles, and where it synapse for the corticospinal tract, it synapse here in the which part of the spinal cord? That is the anterior gray horn, which is supposed to be the motor component of the spinal cord. We will discuss that. And from this second order neuron, the axons comes out and that is supplying the muscle which is concerned. So the part of this cell bodies and the corresponding axon, this is known as the upper motor neuron. So any lesion which is present in the cell body or the fibers here above the second order will be included in the upper motor neuron lesion. And this from here, where is the cell bodies of the second order neuron, this is known as the lower motor neuron. And the axons which are coming out from these second order neurons will be included in the lower motor neuron. So this is the rough sketch of the descending pathway. That means two sets, like in the ascending tracts we were seeing that there are three sets of the neurons needed, okay, for the transmission of any impulse to the higher center. In the descending tracts, look here, there are two neurons, upper motor neuron as well as the lower motor neuron. In the corticospinal tract, the lower motor neuron, where it is present? It is present in the spinal cord. And the upper motor neuron, it will be present in the cerebral cortex. That's it. So, in this, during this descent, there are some another connections. Because the axons which are emerging from this upper motor neuron, when it comes down towards the spinal cord, there are one more structure here which is it passes, that is the brainstem. Okay. So in the brainstem, there are certain motor cranial nerve nucleus present over there. And what are the motor cranial nerves? There are 12 pair of the cranial nerves, we know. Okay, some of them are motor and some are mixed and some are sensory. So any motor cranial nerve, suppose this is the third or the fourth or the sixth or the fifth, the seventh, the 11th or the 12th, like that. So any of the motor cranial nerve nuclei, what should be the innervation of this motor nuclei, which motor cranial nerve nuclei, sorry, that means it is supplying what? It is supplying the skeletal muscles of the eyeball, the face, the head and neck, that is the tongue, larynx, the pharynx, that means the movement of the eyeball. Suppose the extraocular eyeball, that is a voluntary movement of the eyeball. The third, the fourth and the sixth cranial nerve nuclei are needed. So I mean to say that all the motor cranial nerve nuclei which are sitting over in the brainstem, how they get innervated, how they will work. Okay, if there is, unless and until the commanding fibers are coming from the above for the execution of the action, because the axons which arises from this motor nerve nuclei, they also supply, suppose this is for the eye, suppose this is for the face, some are supplying the tongue, some supplies the sternocleidomastoid or the trapezius, like that, isn't it? So there are list of the muscles which are supplied by these motor cranial nerve nuclei. So how this motor cranial nerve nuclei will act, do it motor function? For this you will see here, this descending tracts from the upper motor neuron, from which originates from this corticerebral cortex, it gives branches also to this motor nerve nuclei. That means the nucleus of the cranial nerve, motor nucleus, not the sensory. We are talking about the motor nucleus. So these motor nucleus are innervated by the tracts which are coming from the, again from the cortical area of the cerebrum. So this tracts, it has got another name. It will be discussed under the separate heading of that is the corticobulbar tract, or you can say the corticonuclear tract, isn't it? So corticobulbar or the corticonuclear tract, because the first order neuron, again for these tract, it is from where it is coming? It is coming from the cerebral cortex, isn't it? So this corticospinal tract, when it descends downwards towards the spinal cord, it gives branches to the cranial nerve nuclei, the motor nuclei, and the innervation is very peculiar. We will discuss in the separate class of this corticonuclear or the corticobulbar tract. The very important part here, it is these motor nucleus, this motor cranial nerve nucleus are bilaterally innervated. Okay, that means suppose here are the bilateral motor nucleus. So this nucleus, motor nucleus will have got the bilateral innervation. Suppose this is coming from the left cerebral cortex, it is supplying the left motor nucleus, and it will also supply the right side also, like that. Okay, so all the motor cranial nerve nuclei has got the bilateral innervation like that. Only exception is the lower facial muscle, which is supplied, which has got the innervation from the contralateral side. Very important. We will discuss this thing later. Okay. So this was all about the corticobulbar or the corticonuclear tract, which is also a part of the descending tracts. Okay. So in the it is also included in the pyramidal tracts. This cortico. So you can also write it in here, corticobulbar tract. Okay, so corticospinal tract, it is divided into lateral and the anterior corticospinal tract, as well as there is one more tract, that is the corticobulbar. That means the origin is from the cortex, but where it is going to relay, that is different. In the corticobulbar tract, the relay station is on the motor cranial nerve nucleus situated in the brainstem here. Okay. And the corticospinal lateral or the anterior corticospinal tract, the relay station, the second order, where it is relaying the descending tracts, that is the spinal cord. It is the only difference between the two. Now, we will discuss here the corticospinal tract in this class. Okay. Mainly, we will discuss the corticospinal tract here. So, look, before going in detail of this motor pathway, we must be acquainted with what are the motor areas of the cerebrum, isn't it? So, look here. I've drawn here the which side? This is the left side of the cerebral hemisphere. Okay. So, this is the sagittal section. This is the left side of the cerebral hemisphere. This is the frontal lobe here. This is the temporal. This is the occipital. And this is the parietal. Okay. Now, where is the motor area of the cerebral hemisphere? This is the central sulcus. Okay. the central sulcus divide the motor area from the sensory area. And in the previous class we have seen that the sensory area, it is situated behind this central sulcus. So the central sulcus, where it is present? It is present here, and behind that it is the post central gyrus. What is this? This is the post central gyrus. That is the area number 3, 1 and 2, or the primary somatosensory area. Now comes the motor area. Where it is? It is situated just anterior to the central sulcus, okay, in front of this. So in front of this, just as adjacent to that, there is the pre-central gyrus. Pre-central gyrus, okay, which is supposed to be area number 4, Brodmann area number 4. This pre-central gyrus, it is supposed to be the primary motor area. That means functionally this pre-central gyrus, just means the gyrus which is just anterior to that, it is supposed to be the primary motor area. Okay. Again, there are some other motor areas also in the frontal lobe here. Anterior to that, this pre-central motor area, primary motor area, there is the premotor area. Look here. Here it is the premotor area. This area, which is supposed to be the posterior part of the superior, the middle and the inferior frontal gyrus. So posterior part of that, here it is the premotor area. Okay, that is the area number 6. Here it is the area number 4. Okay. Now one more motor area, it is situated here, which is just above this premotor area, which is supposed to be the supplementary motor area. What is this? This is the supplementary motor area. Isn't it? It is a very primitive one. This supplementary motor area, it is concerned with the primitive movements of the body. So it is like that. So these are the motor. What are the motor areas now? This is the primary motor area, which is lying just anterior to the central sulcus. Anterior to that, there are two more motor gyrus here. One is the premotor area and another is the supplementary motor area. The premotor area, it is concerned with which type of function, motor function. This premotor area, it is mainly concerned with the repetitive, the learned and the planned movement, planned motor movement. Okay. So it is concerned with the learning movement, the planning movement and the repetitive motor movements. Okay. Now the in this diagram we have drawn this post central gyrus. This is the sensory one, and we are discussing the motor tracts. And why this diagram is needed here? Because it is very peculiar thing in this descending tracts. So all these gyrus, all these component motor as well as the sensory gyrus are supposed to give the descending tracts. Okay. So what are the contribution? The post central gives 1/3. Then comes the role of this primary motor area, it gives 1/3. Then the premotor area, it again gives the 1/3 contribution. So likewise, the precentral gyri, the precentral gyrus will contribute to the 2/3. Okay, and post central, that is the sensory one. The post central, it will contribute to the 1/3 of the motor fibers. It is like that, isn't it? So these are the contribution of the motor fibers originating from these areas downwards, isn't it, for the motor pathway. Now how the motor function is executed, for that we will see first. Before, these are the these tracts mainly it's concerned with the voluntary movement. That means we are aware. Before doing any motor movement, we plan for that. Suppose I have to draw. I have to take the red marker. Then I will move downwards, pick this, and then I will draw the this post central gyrus. This with the red marker, isn't it? It is like that. That means for this particular motor movement, what was the thought process? The thought process was that I have to pick the red marker for that, isn't it? And I have to lean downwards, pick it up, and then draw the diagram. Okay, so first the thought process it is needed to initiate any of the motor movement. Then where is the area where the thought is initiated? Another area here you will see here in the again the frontal lobe. Here it is the prefrontal cortex. What it is? It is the prefrontal cortex. Look here, the prefrontal cortex, the anterior part of this frontal gyrus. It is the area for sightness, judgment, intellectual, the thought. So whatever thought process, first it comes for the initiation of any motor movement. The thought process will be initiated, which will be present over here in the prefrontal cortex, isn't it? So it is also the part of the frontal lobe. That means the frontal lobe, all the components are concerned with anyhow with the motor functions of the body, isn't it? So what happens? For example, to pick up this duster, just now I have said I have leaned forward like this and just then I have picked this duster up. So this thought process, it was initiated in this very area, that is the prefrontal cortex. Okay, now how these prefrontal cortex, this thought process it is transmitted to rest of the motor area, which will be finally involved in the descent of the motor pathway. How? These will send impulses to all the motor areas as well also to the sensory. So the thought process which initiated in this prefrontal cortex, it gives signals to rest of the motor areas, but whatever we have enumerated here, and they will be stimulated. Anyhow, the supplementary motor area, the premotor area, which is the mainly for the plant, the repetitive movement, as well as the final execution of this primary motor area, which is mainly concerned with the final decision, it is given by this primary motor area. So all these motor areas will be stimulated and they will give their axons and they will descend downwards, isn't it? So likewise, then how these are interconnected, how the message is transmitted between them, these gyrus, how they come to know. I have given information like this. There are short association fibers present over in between the gyrus. That these gyrus have got the neurons. Okay, so these are the part of the cortex, cerebral cortex. So cortex means they are the collection of the neurons there. So in this very different type of the motor areas as well as the sensory areas, the neurons are there and they are interconnected with their axons through the short association fibers. Short association fibers, isn't it? That means they will talk to each other for final execution of the movement, isn't it? So they will talk like that via the short association fibers, isn't it? No, it is not only these area that we have discussed, that is the premotor, the primary motor or the supplementary motor area as well as the somatosensory area, which is able to do the motor function on its own. There are certain other structures present in the cerebrum. Just look here. We will discuss in the next classes, subsequent classes, that is the basal nuclei, isn't it? What is this basal nuclei? These are the deeply seated collections of the grey matter in the white matter area, isn't it? For example, here you will see this is the globus pallidus, the putamen, then the caudate nucleus are there, then the substantia nigra are there. Okay, so there are so many structures which are included in the basal nuclei. So what is the role of this basal nuclei in this motor pathway? All the information this motor gyrus has planned to do any motor movement, but all the plant motor movement, the ideas which will be given to this basal nuclei, they will receive the planning of the motor function by these motor areas, they will send the fibers to basal nuclei. That means it will have coordination for the proper execution of the motor function. These areas will coordinate with this basal nuclei, isn't it? Whether the plant movement, whatever planning of the movement is there, it is accurate or not, whether it is of low intensity or whether it is of high intensity, it is like that. Suppose I am picking this pen and I put like this, or I am too slowly or too fastly. So it is decided whether my function, planning of my motor movement, it is proper, it is accurate, it is smooth or not. So first it will coordinate with the basal nuclei. Then basal nuclei will correct. First here it is the correction center of any of the planning movement, planning motor movement. So again, after the correction, if there is any overshooting or undershooting of this planning movement, it will correct it and it will send impulses again back to these motor areas. Okay, so there should be correction for these motor movements is needed. Okay, so it was one of the center other than this motor area which is responsible for the smooth, the precise, the accurate motor movement to be conducted. But it is not only the basal nuclei through which it will talk. There is some one more, that is the cerebellum, isn't it? The cerebellum, it is situated just behind the brainstem. Okay, there we know. The same information, the planning movement of the motor action, whatever planning for the motor action was taken by these motor areas, motor gyrus, same information it is also given to the cerebellum. Why? This cerebellum, it is very important. Why? Because it will receive all the plant movement taken by these motor areas of the cerebral cortex. It has got a very important function here of the cerebellum in the motor movement, because we have discussed in the previous class, there is the spinocerebellar tracts, and through this spinocerebellar tracts, the cerebellum, it is updated. Anytime it is updated with what? Or the proprioception. Proprioception, what that means? What is the proprioception? What is the position of the muscles, the ligaments, the joint capsule? Anytime through these spinocerebellar tracts, the cerebellum, anytime it is updated with the position of the whatever in the space, whatever is the position of the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons or the joint capsule, but the ipsilateral, very important. That means all the information, proprioceptive sensation coming from this locomotor system, where it was going to the ipsilateral side. Ipsilateral, same side of the cerebellar hemisphere. Now, this plant movement for the execution of the motor function, whatever information it is delivered to the cerebellum, and cerebellum itself, it is gathered all the information of the through the proprioceptive impulses. So it will again give the final motor movement planning. That means whatever it will correct, it will modify the actions that is needed here in the cerebellum. It will transform it and again send back to these motor areas. That means, and then it will say that to the motor areas which is responsible for the descent of this motor pathway, that now the pathway, the motor function, it will be accurate. Now you can execute this particular motor movement because I have corrected the second time along with the help of this proprioceptive impulses. That is very important. Suppose I have to pick this person, at which intensity, what will be the speed, that itself with the help of the proprioceptive impulses which were already informed to the cerebellar cortex, it is a great help to plan the how should be the motor movement, which should be accurate and the perfect. That is the role of the cerebellum here for the coordination. That means these areas that are the motor areas as well as the somatosensory areas, along with the basal nuclei and the cerebellum, it coordinates, and these plant movements taken of these motor areas are rectified by the basal nuclei as well as the cerebellum, so that the final execution of the motor pathway, that should be accurate and smooth. That is the purpose. That means by this background we have only understand that it is not the motor area only, these motor which can take the decision for the smooth and the precise voluntary movement. It has to take help of some other areas also, and in that the first name is of the basal nuclei, basal ganglia, you can say. We will discuss in detail with the different class of the basal nuclei as well as the cerebellum. For the time being, these two have the important role for the final motor pathway, isn't it? So it is like that. Now come to the pathway. Now how this pathway starts and then works. Now from where the fiber starts, the descending tract starts from which part? We have discussed in the rough diagram, it starts from the upper motor neuron, and that upper motor neuron, where it was situated? In the cerebral cortex, isn't it? The cerebral cortex, it was the upper motor neuron from where the fibers of the descending tract starts, isn't it? So in the cerebral cortex, a very important point you have to understand here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, isn't it? The cerebral cortex, it is divided into, when we will read the topography of cerebrum and the individual class of the cerebrum, it is seen that the cerebrum itself, it is divided into 6 lamina. Cerebral cortex, it is divided into 6 lamina. And it has got some of the outer molecular layer, the outer granular layer, then comes the outer pyramidal layer, then like that. In the 5th layer, there is a nomenclature which is known as the ganglionic layer, or the inner pyramidal cell layer, isn't it? Inner pyramidal cell layer. From this very lamina, that is the 5th one, the neurons, the cell bodies of that which is seated in the 5th lamina, the axons which will emerge from this, isn't it? They are the upper motor neuron for this corticospinal tract. That means, where is the first order neuron of this descending tract situated? It is situated in which part of the cerebral cortex? Again, here is a question. It is situated in the 5th lamina cortex. In this pyramidal layer. Why not? Because this is the pyramidal cell layer and the axons are emerging from this pyramidal cell layer, and some of these pyramidal cells are also known as, it is larger inside, which is known as the giant cells of Betz. A very important point to be noted. Some cells are very enlarged and they are known as the giant cells of Betz, the pyramidal layer. So these tracts are originating from these pyramidal cells. That's why I think that this corticospinal tracts must be known as the pyramidal tracts. But it is another theory that it crosses through the pyramid of the medulla. That's why it is known as the pyramidal tract. But why corticonuclear fibers are also originating, and that is included in the pyramidal tracts. Okay, so this may be the reason why the corticonuclear are also included in the pyramidal tracts. Look here. Now these are the cells which are present in the 5th lamina. Okay, so the cells which are present here, the axons will originate from these pyramidal cell layers, and the axons which will originate, they will make a pattern of fan like spreading here. These are called the form of projection fibers here. What is this? This is the fan shaped pattern of the axons coming from these cells. This red dot, what are these? These are the pyramidal cells. These are the pyramidal cells of where it is situated in the cerebral cortex. Okay, in the fifth layer. And some it is larger, which is known as pyramidal cells of Betz. Now, these corona radiata, which is the fan shaped. What is this? This is the fan shaped arrangement of the axons emerging from this pyramidal cells here, isn't it? And this is known as the corona radiata, isn't it? So, it is like that. From this cerebral cortex, now it will descend downwards. Now, what are the structures from above downwards through it will pass below? Look here. In the ascending tracts, we have already drawn the same diagram. This is the thalamus. This is the V-shaped pattern like structure. What is this? This is the internal capsule. Internal capsule, it is only the part of the projection fibers. It is the gate of the afferent and efferent tracts through which the ascending and the descending tracts has to pass. So, in the ascending tracts also, we have seen that there was the through this gate, internal capsule, the ascending tracts was moving upwards. Through this same gate, the internal capsule, the descending tracts will come downwards in the brainstem. But which part? Look here. Here it is the anterior limb and here it is the posterior limb. Okay. So, through the posterior limb of the internal capsule, isn't it? Through the posterior limb of the internal capsule, all these fibers will descend downwards in bundles, isn't it? They will descend downwards. Okay. Then it comes where? Here it is the midbrain, isn't it? In the midbrain. Now the question arises, this descending fibers, these corticospinal fibers which are coming downwards, it will pass through which part of the midbrain? Very important. Look here. Here is the midbrain and this is the ventral aspect or the cerebral peduncle. This is known as the cerebral peduncle of the midbrain. Because why cerebral? Because the fibers of the cerebrum, it is going downwards by this part. That's why it is known as cerebral peduncle, and the middle part of that, this is the crus cerebri. Crus cerebri. So, the fibers which are coming from above, where they are going? They are going to which part of this cerebral peduncle? In the middle part of that. Okay. In the middle part. And then it is going to the pons here. Same here also. Through the crus cerebri, the fibers which are of the corticospinal tract, which is coming downwards, passing below through this crus cerebri, isn't it? In bundles. The arrangement of these fibers here, it is, if it is the cervical is most medial and the sacral, the lower fibers, it is most lateral one. A very important point here. So, from this crus cerebri, where it should go? Now it will reach where? It will reach to the pons. When this fibers comes in the pons after passing through the crus cerebri of the midbrain, isn't it? This is a crus cerebri. It will meet here with the pontine nuclei. In the pons, what is this? These are the pontine nuclei here. which is in discreted form. Some of the fibers, descending fibers, this synapse here with these pontine nuclei. For what? For what purpose? These descending fibers, the corticospinal fibers which are coming down, and when it reaches the pons, why there is synapse with the pontine nucleus of these descending fibers? Because we have right now discussed the cerebellum should get informed about the plant motor function, what the motor area wants to do, isn't it? So for this, through this tracts, the information is needed to the cerebellum via these tracts. And how? Look here. Suppose it is the coronal section, this is the right side and this is the left side. So we will talk here, this is the right cerebral hemisphere and this is the left. So likewise, this is the right cerebellar hemisphere and this is the left cerebellar hemisphere. Okay. So a very important point is here, through the corticospine, some of the fibers, it synapse here, and the axons which emerges from these pontine nuclei, isn't it? The pontine nuclei after synapse, where they will go? To which cerebellum? This information, it is coming from the right cerebral cortex. This is the right half, this is the left half. So these bundles are coming down from the right cerebral cortex and this is the right side of the cerebellum. And the pontine nucleus, it is of right side also. So these descending tracts, it will synapse here, but it will not inform the cerebellum to the same side, okay, via this middle cerebellar peduncle. Why? Because the axons which originates from here, it will move to the opposite side and they will inform of the movement, motor plant movement to the left cerebellar hemisphere, isn't it? Left cerebellar hemisphere. Likewise, same thing here also. This descending tracts, again it synapse over the pontine nuclei. The axons which originates from this pontine nucleus crosses to the opposite cerebellum, reaches the opposite cerebellum via the corticopontocerebellar fibers and they alert the cerebellum here now. Okay. They will tell the cerebellum about the motor movement which is needed, okay, via these tracts. Now, why there is crossing over? Why not the same side? Why through the pontine nucleus, these descending tracts is informing the same side of cerebellum? Look here. As we know, in the ascending tracts, all informations of the right side were gathered there in the left cerebral cortex, isn't it? So, same thing in the descending tract, the right cerebral cortex, it is controlling the left half of the body and the left cerebral cortex, it is controlling the right half of the body. So, to fulfill these criteria, to control the same opposite side, this tract was coming from the, suppose this is the right side, this is the right corticospinal tracts, and it has to be need for the right side of the proprioceptive impulses from the cerebellum, isn't it? So, it will gain what? This left cerebellum, this left-sided cerebellum, what it will do? It will receive information from the left side of the body. We have already discussed all these things in the spinocerebellar tract. This left-sided cerebellum, it receives the proprioceptive impulses from the left side and the right side from the right side of the body. That means this right corticospinal, ultimately what it has to do? It has to control the left side of the body, isn't it? It has to control the voluntary movement or the skeletal movements of which side? It is supposed to control the voluntary movement, skill movement of the left side of the body, because these fibers are of right side. So, where is the left side? That's why the right-sided fibers, it is going to the left cerebellar hemisphere, because information of the proprioceptive impulses are gathered here on the left side of the one, isn't it? So that's why there is the need of crossing to the opposite side, because for the proper execution of the motor movement via the cerebral cortex, it should need those proprioceptive impulses where it has to control. So it is crossing to the opposite side of the cerebellum, isn't it? Now, again what happens? The descending corticospinal tracts, what they will do? Again it will condense below the scattered in between these pontine nucleus. Again they will condense here around this pontine nucleus. And what will be the fate of this descending tracts now? Where it will go? Now the turn is that they will descend downwards to the medulla oblongata. Okay, and here in the medulla oblongata, you see there are two structures on the ventral aspect here. One is the pyramid. One is the pyramid and another is the olive. Here is the pyramid and here is the olive, isn't it? So the name of the tract was the pyramidal tracts. I think one criteria of being pyramidal is one also because it originates from the pyramidal cells of the cerebral cortex, isn't it? In my opinion. And the another reason, the main, it is written in every book, it is the pyramid of the medulla oblongata, the site where there is the decussation of these corticospinal tracts. The descending tracts decussates here, crosses here to the opposite side. Okay, that's why it is also known as the pyramidal tracts. So these descending tracts, where it will move? Where it will move, olive or pyramid? It will move to the pyramid of the medulla oblongata, isn't it? In the medulla oblongata, these tracts, it is the upper part of the medulla oblongata and this is the lower part of the medulla oblongata. So the crossing of this descending fiber, descending axons, where it will be seen? It will be seen in the upper part or it is seen in the lower part? Of course, it is seen in the lower part. This pyramidal decussation here, it is present in the lower half of the medulla oblongata. That means the pyramid is here. Okay. In the pyramid, lower half of that, the descending fibers, the descending pyramidal tracts, the corticospinal tracts, it will decussate and move to the opposite side. Now again there is a question here, whether the whole of the tracts will cross or there are some percentage here of crossing of these fibers. Very, very important point for the objective. It is written like that, 80 to 85%. Okay, 80 to 85% of these tracts, it crosses to the opposite side and then it descends in the lateral white column of the spinal cord, isn't it? 80 to 85%, 80 to 85% of the fibers, they cross and comes in the lateral white column of the spinal cord, isn't it? So it is like that. Then what are the uncrossed fibers? The uncrossed fibers, it will move downwards the same side. If it is coming from the left side, then the uncrossed fiber, it will descend downwards like that, isn't it? It will move like that. Draw to this part, isn't it? So these are the crossed fibers, and where it is going after crossing, in which compartment of the white matter of the spinal cord, to fulfill its name, isn't it? Because this is the lateral white column and this is the anterior white column. Look here, the crossed fibers, the crossed component, it is coming to the lateral white column. That's why it is known as the lateral corticospinal tract. Isn't it? This is the lateral corticospinal tract because it is coming to the lateral compartment of the spinal cord. Then the uncrossed fibers which are coming downwards, and where it is going to relay, where it is present in the white column, it is present in the anterior white column, and that's why it is known as what? The anterior or the ventral corticospinal tract. Okay, so this lateral corticospinal tract, it is the crossed part, and the anterior corticospinal tract, it is the uncrossed fibers, where only at the pyramid level. This is the story of crossing and uncrossing of the fibers of these descending tracts only at this pyramid level. And suppose we have said right now, the right cerebral cortex has to control all the movement of the left half of the body, and if the fibers are not crossing, then how it will control the muscles of the left half of the body? It should have to also cross to the opposite side, but where? It is not the anterior corticospinal tract, it is not crossing at this very point, but it will cross because it is supposed to cross to the opposite side to control the contralateral body part, isn't it? Like that. So what is the fate of this axons here? The axons which are coming in the lateral compartment, we are talking about the lateral corticospinal tract, which was mainly concerned with the scale movement, precise movement of what? Distal limb muscles, isn't it? And this anterior corticospinal tract was mainly concerned with the gross movement of what? Of the trunk as the axial muscles, isn't it? It is like that. Very important. Again, this is very important point for the objective MCQs. Okay. So, look here. This was the first order. This was the upper motor neuron. In the descending fibers, in the descending tracts, the upper motor neuron gives axons which were coming downwards like this via the journey through the brainstem and reaches in the spinal cord. The relay station, where it will relay, this descending tract, the axons, where it will relay, the relay point, it should be a neuron, motor neuron, okay, because it is the motor pathway, and we all know that the posterior part of the spinal cord, this gray matter, it was sensory, and the anterior gray horn, it was motor. So it will relay here in the two neurons which are present over here, and both of them are the motor neurons. Both of them are the motor neurons. And what are the motor neurons? We will discuss. Look here. Because this lateral corticospinal tract, it has already been crossed here at the pyramid. So it will not cross here in the spinal cord. Okay. It will move to the, where it will go? To synapse, to the anterior gray horn cells of the spinal cord, isn't it? So in the anterior gray horn cells, what are the type of cells? There are the alpha motor neuron and the gamma motor neuron. When these tracts, this axon or the fibers relay here, it will see two types of neurons sitting over here. One is alpha and another is gamma motor neuron. Okay, then why it is like that? Why it is synapsing with the two? It is known as the gamma motor neuron here, and one is the alpha motor neuron. Some So it will synapse with both the neurons, the second order neurons, or here you can say it is the lower motor neuron. These are the lower motor neurons. These are the lower motor neurons, the alpha and the gamma. Isn't it? So first we will talk about the alpha. Look here. Any muscle, any skeletal muscles we can see. Here are the skeletal muscle and here it is the muscle spindle present here, which is the intrafusal, and this part, the contractile part of the muscle fiber, it is the extrafusal muscle fiber. So this skeletal muscle is divided into the extrafusal muscle fiber, okay, and the intrafusal, which is encapsulated, the muscle spindle, intrafusal muscle fiber. So how it is supplied? So look here, fibers which relay over the alpha motor neuron. So the axons which will come out through this alpha motor neuron, it will supply which part? It will supply the extrafusal fibers, that is the alpha motor neuron. Okay, alpha motor neuron, the axons which originates from this nucleus, they will supply the extrafusal muscle fibers. Okay, now this is the gamma motor neuron. The gamma motor neuron, the axons which originates, that is innervating the intrafusal muscle fibers, that is the intrafusal muscle fibers by the gamma motor neuron. Okay, and likewise these two, the extrafusal muscle fibers and the intrafusal muscle fibers are togetherly activated, and this is known as the alpha gamma coactivation. Alpha gamma coactivation, isn't it? For the execution of the contraction of this skeletal muscle fibers, isn't it? So it is like that. So look here, this tract we are discussing, if it is of the right side, then this lateral corticospinal tract which have synapse here with the lower motor neuron here, which is controlling the what? Right side of the skeletal muscles. Here it is the right side. Any muscle, voluntary muscles of the right side, because this was coming from the left cerebral cortex, isn't it? Now what about this? This anterior corticospinal tract, this was the anterior corticospinal tract. It is, suppose this side, if I am discussing this one, this was coming from the left side, left cerebral cortex, this corticospinal tract, and it is the undivided fibers coming as the anterior corticospinal tract in the anterior compartment or the anterior funiculus of the white matter. Now what it will do? It is coming from the left side. It will cross or not? Yes, of course it will cross now. It will cross here like this. Here it will cross to the opposite side. Okay. In the anterior white commissure, and the anterior white commissure, it is formed like that, the crossing of the fibers here. So this anterior corticospinal tract, it will move to the contralateral side, and there it will synapse, isn't it? That means the crossing of this anterior corticospinal tract, it is present at the same segment where it has to supply. A very important point. So ultimately what happens? If it is coming from the left side, it is crossing to the right side. That means again the left side corticospinal tract, it is controlling the left half of the body. It is like that. So again it will also meet with the same alpha and the gamma motor neurons for its activation of the skeletal muscles. it will relay here, and the axons which are coming from that, axons which are coming from this alpha as well as the gamma motor neuron, what they will do? Again they will supply the skeletal muscles like this, both the sides. Isn't it? So this was the all about the descending tracts, the corticospinal tracts. Just have a look. Some of all the pathways like that. This is the coronal section of the central nervous system, starting from the cerebral cortex up to the spinal cord. So the motor movement, the voluntary control of the skeletal muscles, which is under our control, how it is done. Look here, the fibers originated from the cerebral cortex, and how that fibers originated under the influence, under the coordination, under the talking between the so many areas before the final pathway it is descending down. It is concerning the so many areas. The cerebellum was there, the basal nuclei was there for the coordinating the motor activity with the frontal cortex, isn't it? Or the motor cortex. Now the upper motor neuron, which is the fifth lamina of the cerebral cortex, where the pyramidal cells are situated, from there the axons are originating and they are condensing at the very narrower pathway, that is the internal capsule here, towards the internal capsule, which is the gate through which the fibers of the corticospinal tract, they will descend downwards towards the brainstem. So it is the corona radiata, and from the posterior limb of the internal capsule the fiber descend downwards and it remains ipsilateral here again. And when it reaches in the midbrain, it passes through the crus cerebri of the cerebral peduncle. That is the story of the whole of the descending pathway. Do you know that the whole of the descending tracts, it passes through the ventral aspect of the brainstem. That is it is not passing through the dorsal aspect of the brainstem, rather it is passing through the ventral aspect, because ultimately when it will reach the spinal cord, so that it meets with the anterior gray horn, which is supposed to be on the ventral aspect. That is why, so that's why it is from the very beginning, the course of the descending tracts is almost ventral in position, of whether it is the midbrain, whether it is the pons, whether it is the medulla oblongata. Okay. Now here in the pons, there are the pontine nuclei, where there are some fiber synapse and moves to the opposite cerebellar hemisphere and tell them about the plant motor movement of the cerebral cortex. I need some help, because already proprioceptive impulses you have gathered from the locomotor system, and that is needed for the final, the precise, the accurate movement of the motor activity. Now again these fibers move downwards in the medulla oblongata, isn't it? And in the medulla oblongata, thus there is a one very important story, that is the pyramidal decussation. The pyramid, it is the part where these descending tracts are moving downwards, isn't it? Moving downwards in the pyramid, not the olive. And the one more important thing here, it is many of the fiber crosses, that is the 80 to 85% of the descending fibers will cross to the opposite side, and only 15% fibers, they are remaining uncrossed, and the name is anterior corticospinal tract, and here it is the lateral corticospinal tract. The cross fibers of these descending tracts will reach where? In the lateral white column, and this uncrossed fiber, it will reach where? In the anterior white column, depending, and to fulfill its name. One more important thing here, this lateral corticospinal tract, isn't it? Lateral corticospinal tract, when we move downwards, the mass of these fibers will gradually decrease. It is present throughout the length of the spinal cord, this corticospinal tract. But here in the anterior corticospinal tract, it is related with only the axial musculature, the trunk muscles. That's why this anterior corticospinal tract, it is not needed that these tracts should be present throughout the length. It is present only up to the cervical and the upper thoracic region. Isn't it? A very important point here for the anterior corticospinal tract. Okay. So, when the crossed fibers cross lateral corticospinal tract, it is already crossed, it will synapse where with the lower motor neuron, because it was the fiber axons of the upper motor neuron. Okay, and it will synapse here with the lower motor neuron, and the lower motor neuron, there are the alpha and the gamma, isn't it? Alpha and the gamma. Alpha, when it will synapse with the alpha and the axons of the alpha motor neuron, it will supply the extrafusal muscle fiber. That means the part of the muscle, skeletal muscle, which will contract or it will elongate. You can say like that. Or the gamma motor neuron, it is supposed to supply, innervate the intrafusal muscle fiber, that the muscle spindle with the stretch of the tendon, like that. So it is the descending tracts, and the rest of the descending tract, the like the corticonuclear and the subcortical tracts, it is very important also. They will discuss in the next class. So that's all for all these tracts. Okay, and we will meet in the next class. Thank you.